February 7th, 1969. The Southern Aurora, one of Australia's most prestigious trains, was speeding through the countryside, its passengers unaware that disaster was waiting just around the corner. A sudden, unexpected turn of fate. The train's driver, struck by a heart attack, causing the train to crash into another. 9 lives lost, over 100 injured. But what exactly went wrong? Join us as we uncover the chilling details behind the Violettown crash, which is also called Southern Aurora disaster. Violettown, a small community with a population of just 936 people, as of 2021, is located in southeastern Australia. It's in the state of Victoria, about 93 miles north of Melbourne and 81 miles east of Bendigo. Violettown sits on the Northeast Railway Line, a major route connecting Melbourne to Albury. This line is a dual-gauge system, meaning it has both regular gauge, 1,435 millimeters, and broad gauge, 1,600 millimeters, tracks running side by side. This design allows trains built for either track type to travel without needing to switch between different lines. However, at the time of the accident, the section of the line near Violettown only had a single regular gauge track. To help trains pass each other, there were sidings, also known as passing loops, in different towns. The passing loop at Violettown was 915 meters, about 3,002 feet, long, and it was operated remotely from centralized traffic control in Melbourne. The train involved in this crash was Goods Train 428, an early morning freight service traveling from Melbourne to Albury. It was made up of 22 freight cars, most of which were carrying new cars. The train was pulled by the Victorian Railways S-Class locomotive number 314. Each locomotive was given a name along with its number. S314, for example, was named Sir John O'Shanassy after a 19th century politician when it entered service in 1961. At the time of the Violettown crash, the locomotive was being operated by 30-year-old Mr. Roseveare, with 26-year-old Mr. Brendica assisting as the fireman. Along with them on the train was the goods guard, 37-year-old Mr. Harris. Heading in the opposite direction from Sydney to Melbourne was the prestigious Southern Aurora, an express passenger service that began in 1962 when a regular gauge connection was established between the two cities. This train was also pulled by a VR S-Class locomotive, S316, named Sir Andrew Clark. The Southern Aurora consisted of 12 4-axle passenger cars, along with a generator car behind the locomotive and a brake car at the rear. The train cars were brand new at the time, made of unpainted stainless steel and specifically built for long-distance services like the Southern Aurora. As an overnight service, the Southern Aurora included sleeper cars, along with lounge and dining cars. At the time of the accident, the Southern Aurora was nearly at full capacity, carrying 192 passengers and 22 crew members. The train was driven by 52-year-old Mr. Bowden, with 30-year-old Mr. Coulthard serving as his fireman. On the morning of February 7, 1969, Mr. McDonnell, a train controller at CTC in Melbourne, was focused on 2 trains, the 1:25 a.m. freight from Melbourne to Sydney and the southbound Southern Aurora. Around 6:30 a.m., he noticed the Southern Aurora, usually punctual, was running late. Knowing one train would have to wait for the other near Violettown, he faced a tough choice. Normally, freight trains give way to passenger services, but doing so would cause a 100-minute delay for the freight train. Mr. McDonnell decides not to stop the freight train as planned, but instead lets it continue to the Violettown passing loop. To make this work, he slows down the Southern Aurora. After some quick calculations, he realizes both trains can pass each other at the siding at a slow speed, avoiding a full stop. Confident in his solution, he radios the freight train driver, Mr. Roseveare, and sets the signals for the Southern Aurora. The Southern Aurora has just left Glenrowan Station, 31 miles from Violettown, with Mr. Bowden carefully timing his delay. As the train heads downhill, he knows that running at the 60-mile-per-hour speed limit will shave a minute off his delay. The line flattens near Benalla, allowing him to speed up to 70 miles per hour. With full throttle, Mr. Bowden relaxes as the train speeds down the straight, level track, except for a slight S-bend near Violettown. At 7 a.m., fireman Mr. Coulthard spots a yellow warning signal ahead, indicating the next signal will likely order a stop. As standard practice, the train should reduce speed by 10 miles per hour. Mr. Coulthard remarks, "It looks like we may be having a bit of a stop." "I'll put the kettle on," and heads to the nose cone to fill the kettle from an onboard tank. He doesn't notice the train slowing down, but feels the locomotive rumble over the points as it enters the passing loop. Returning from the nose cone, Mr. Coulthard notices his colleague, Mr. Bowden, still seated with the throttle wide open. He looks to the passing loop and sees it's empty. There should be a train there to allow them to pass. As he turns forward, he's horrified to see a red stop signal rushing toward them, and beyond it, a freight train heading straight for them. With no time to stop, Mr. Coulthard shouts a warning to Mr. Bowden and rushes to the engine compartment. On the freight train, Mr. Roseveare approaches Violettown at 50 miles per hour and spots the Southern Aurora in the distance, its headlights visible. He slows to 35 miles per hour, expecting to be diverted into the siding. But the express train doesn't seem to be slowing down. "It's going fairly hard," he comments to his fireman, Mr. Brendeka, as concern grows. What was once an amusing thought of a freight train getting priority over the express is now replaced with worry as both men watch the Southern Aurora nearing the bend at Violettown Station. "It's still coming," Mr. Roseveare yells as he slams on the brakes with one hand and flashes his headlights with the other. Realizing it's futile, he rushes to open the cab door. Mr. Brendeka follows suit, climbing down the outside ladder. He hesitates, looking down at the racing ballast and sleepers before glancing up to see Mr. Roseveare heading for the engine compartment. With a final look at the freight cars and the approaching Southern Aurora, Brendeka jumps just as the two trains collide head-on at 102 miles per hour, less than 80 feet from him. A deafening crash erupts as the two locomotives collide. The impact is so violent that the Southern Aurora's locomotive is hurled into the air before crashing back down. A nearby witness later recalls feeling the ground shake as a freight car soared even higher, scattering cargo in all directions. The leading cars of the Southern Aurora slide over the wreckage, with two cars lodged 30 feet in the air. Spilled diesel from the freight train ignites, spreading fire to the Southern Aurora's forward cars. Mr. Roseveare and two Southern Aurora crew members are killed, along with 5 passengers, and 117 others are injured. Local volunteer firefighters witnessed the crash and immediately went to raise the alarm, while passing motorists were the first to assist survivors. Due to miscommunication, the initial alert reported a collision between 2 trucks, later corrected to a train hitting a truck at a level crossing. It wasn't until firefighters arrived on the scene that they realized the situation was much worse. Over 100 firefighters from surrounding districts, arriving by car and plane, soon joined the rescue effort. Originally assumed dead, Mr. Brendeka had actually survived his jump from the speeding train. After hitting the ground, he rolled clear of the wreckage just in time to see the freight train's locomotive launch into the air. A freight car landed near him, knocking him unconscious. When he regained consciousness, he crawled out, grabbed a metal bar, and tried smashing windows to help survivors, despite his right shoulder being unusable. With many car doors jammed and flames adding to the chaos, firefighters managed to control the fire long enough to rescue everyone. Though 4 passenger cars and several freight cars were consumed by flames, no victims died from fire or smoke. It took hours for responders to approach the remains of S-316, which had been largely destroyed by fire. They recovered Mr. Bowden's body, the 9th and final victim. An autopsy was performed to determine if alcohol or drugs were involved, but instead, the results stunned investigators. Mr. Bowden had died from a heart attack before the crash, about 6 miles from the collision site. He had likely been unresponsive for some time before the collision, sitting back in his chair, unaware that he had already passed. Through the night, workers painstakingly dug through the wreckage, uncovering the leading passenger car at the center. Surprisingly, it was empty. All the passengers had gone to the restaurant car for breakfast just moments before the crash. Investigators later reviewed Mr. Bowden's medical records, revealing a concerning history. His mother had died from a heart attack in her early 50s, and he himself had experienced a heart-related event the year prior. The fatal heart attack hadn't come without warning. Mr. Bowden's doctor had advised him to inform his employer about his health issues, but he didn't. To him, ending his train driving career wasn't an option. It would mean financial loss, but more importantly, it was his life's passion. He assured the doctor that he always rode with a qualified fireman, who could take control if the driver became incapacitated. His medical condition remained unknown to the railway company. The coroner was blunt in his report, stating he, Mr. Bowden, was extremely negligent in persisting in driving what might well be called a prestige train, knowing that he was a candidate for death at any moment, and in effect, admitting that if death did overtake him on the train, the safety of passengers, crew, and equipment would depend upon the firemen stopping the train. The coroner turned his attention to Mr. Coulthard, the surviving fireman from the Southern Aurora, pointing out that calculations showed the train had exceeded the speed limit before the crash. When the steady and reliable driver, Mr. Bowden, was acting unusually by traveling above the 70-mile-per-hour limit and had passed a caution signal without responding, Mr. Coulthard left the cabin to fill the kettle. He did so at a time when other drivers, including Bowden on a previous trip, would have slowed down by at least 10 miles per hour. Coulthard knew there were more signals ahead and understood his duty to observe them, but failed to do so. The official report further revealed that the conductor's logbook was found to be largely a work of fiction, with the conductor having gone to sleep in his on-train office shortly after the train departed Albury. When questioned about discrepancies between his records and the actual movements of the train, he admitted to the fabrication. He also confessed to having watched the train pass the yellow and red signals without slowing down, and only attempted to engage the emergency brake once the collision threw him to the ground. After much consideration, the investigation chose not to recommend manslaughter charges against Mr. Coulthard, the fireman, and Mr. Wire, the conductor. The decision was justified by the fact that while their negligence was evident, it wasn't extreme enough to warrant a trial. Furthermore, their actions would not have had fatal consequences if Mr. Bowden had not acted with staggering negligence regarding his health. The details of their conduct were forwarded to their employer, and within a week, Mr. Coulthard was fired, while Mr. Wire was demoted to a station position, no longer working on trains. In the end, no one was put on trial for the tragic events that shook the small town, claiming the lives of 8 people. The wreckage was cleared in just a few days, and the rail line was quickly rebuilt. As we reflect on the tragic events that unfolded that day, one question lingers. Could this catastrophe have been prevented? Was it the failure of one individual, or the series of overlooked details that led to the loss of so many lives? And perhaps more importantly, what lessons can we learn from this tragedy to ensure that such an incident is never repeated? What do you think? Was justice served in this case? Could better decisions have been made to prevent this devastating accident? We want to hear your thoughts. Share your opinions in the comments below.